Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of Epigenetics Unleashed. Today we're going to talk about nutrition and epigenetics, eating for your genes. My name's Josh, I'm the co-founder of ThinkFit with my sister Elise. We've had a gym in Western Sydney for just over 5 years now, and we've also run a fitness business for 7 years. I've been coaching people for 14 years, and the reason we've led to this approach is because I've seen the incredible results from people who seem to get no results doing the usual process, or the usual process just didn't feel right to them, so they found it hard to stay on track. Now, with epigenetics, just to, if you haven't been here before, understand epigenetics, it's basically the study of how the environment influences your genes, and then your genes create actions in your body, and then you end up, through all your lifestyle and your actions, end up looking how you are. And that's where we'll get to health types in a later discussion or in previous episodes. And health types essentially help us create a foundation from which we can start to give you information that is more precise to you versus just trying what we think is the best approach in general. That's why I love this approach. I love the personalization of it. And I truly believe it's the way moving forward to help people who have struggled with health and fitness for so long. And we take the scope outside of just health and fitness. We look at, lifestyle stresses. So if it's social, in terms of relationships, we look at how your mind functions. There's so many elements that come into this epigenetic package. It's an incredible approach to help you understand how we can influence your lifestyle so you can live your best. Now, as we dive into it, what we need to understand is that with these health type profiles, with this epigenetic stuff, we can understand based on your health type what hormone profile you sort of have. So yes, we all have hormones, similar hormones, but how the health type works is there's more chance that you are predisposed to certain hormones. So when you do certain things in your lifestyle, it's either going to enhance how you feel, or it's going to make you worse, and maybe chronic illness and disease. And with this information, with this science, with this technology from PH360, we can look into the future based on where you're at and see what disease you're likely to occur if you keep going the route you're going. I think it's insane. It sounds futuristic, but we have the tools available, and the science and the research just keeps proving it's true. So as we dive in, I might just pop that up so you can get a little look-see of what I'm talking about in terms of the illnesses and diseases we can kind of pre-detect. And it's cool when you think about it. Something else is like genetic lineage. So you'll find people who maybe guardian type tend to be more islander based, but there's also around the world, but just the way their bodies are built definitely have an influence from that. And they're the same sort of issues that they see across the board. When we look at the next part, so what we understand about food is basically information. You're putting information in so that your body can process it. It has different filters, different processing methods. And if we have a healthy body, we can get the best out of the food, but sometimes we need food that aligns more with us. If you can imagine thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, we mainly lived in certain sections of the world. And within those sections, the food variety wasn't too much, but there were specific types of food that supported the people there. Fast forward to now, we've had so much access to frankenfoods and so many other things that our diets have become quite confusing, and we don't get what our body naturally kind of wants. So what happens over time is these filters start to get clogged up. So like your liver, your kidneys, your stomach acids can get messed up, your pancreas functions, so your ability to process insulin. All these things get affected because we're putting different information into our body that wasn't necessarily available before. And we haven't evolved to adapt. We have evolved to adapt, but we're adapting in negative lights that are creating illnesses and disease. So when we can understand that how we metabolize food is really important, and the health of our body is important to be able to metabolize things more effectively, it makes so much sense. Example, to clarify this process, like even healthy foods may not be the right for you right now, that what we call healthy foods. I had a guardian client, the health type, that started up with me, and when she started a program, she wasn't even allowed to have broccoli as an excellent food or a great food. And what we found is after she lost 10 kilos, we redid the measurements, we looked at the data. Then what we noticed was she was actually allowed to have broccoli again. Now, this was a big belief changer for me, because I was like, oh, wow, this thing actually changes with you and your state of health. So food being information, obviously, like the right information at the wrong time, or the healthy information at the wrong time, can cause issues itself. And what we've found by changing the foods, implementing these things, we're seeing incredible results, especially for our endomorphic clients. They're definitely the ones that have been, misled unintentionally by the fitness industry. We see these activator health types and these crusaders and even your connectors. They respond really well to typical fitness recommendations like the meat and things like that, 6 meals a day. Whereas we look at our endomorphs and it is very different. So I hope that encourages you enough to listen into the rest of the talk. When we talk about personalization, I just really want to make it clear. Dr. Cam did a fantastic presentation on this that I saw quite a while ago. It's called One Man's Food is Another Man's Poison. And essentially what I just talked about, but understanding, there is no one size fits all. There's no average of the population because not everyone's an average. There's a span of people who may be non-responders, they may be super responders, but the average may not necessarily mean the huge bulk, which is really interesting. And then when you're looking at studies, it just makes it hard to really quantify a lot of results and processes and who's been funding what. And with PH360, I just like how I've implemented this now through 70 people, and most of the endomorphic people, I'm going to say like everyone that implemented it and actually did the work, felt so much better. Like they're like, oh my God, I've never felt so inclined to keep up this lifestyle, not so much a diet. Like it just feels right to my body. I can't believe that eating less meat at night has resulted in me feeling fantastic. Versus, that's not an everyone thing, that's a health type thing, versus giving meat to activators for dinner, filling them right up before bed, they sleep fantastic. So we need to make sure it's not dogmatic in that sense. And we're still working with the individual. So I'm going to listen to what they say. I'm going to make sure that they feel okay with it. We need to sometimes check calories for people who switch to more of a plant-based approach, just because they're not loading up as much and their meal frequency reduces as well, which we'll talk about. Part of the endomorphic reason is why, as to why we reduce the amount of food they eat at night was because their glycemic response at night was actually far greater than the other health types. So that means that the food they're having is getting stored a lot easier because the hormone insulin is driving the store factor to push it into their muscles and stuff. Also, they have a longer digestive system. So this means that through the night, instead of trying to sleep and focusing on that, they're trying to digest the food, and it just results in upset nights. The first 2 weeks of endomorphic clients switching over to this approach, report fantastic sleep. When you sleep better, you have less stress. When you have less stress, you digest food better. So it's kind of like an upwards spiraling circle of positiveness that I thought was really important to share. So what we'll look at is, I do want to give you something outside of the epigenetic approach, just in case you're like, where do I start? So reach out to me after this on socials. We have a good approach. Now, this is a fantastic place to start to just build up some base habits. If you don't want to dive into the best realm. And essentially, there's a good food list we get from Precision Nutrition. It's just healthy, whole foods. They're ultimately going to be the better version things for you versus like prepared food and things like that. So the good approach is about eating mostly off that food list, at least 1 to 2 meals per day. And that way we just bring the habits to life of aiming for healthier whole foods. Then when we look at better, so our better approach, essentially, if people don't want to go into best, don't believe in it, that's totally fine. What we do use is the older sort of methodology of, okay, well, let's aim for your calories, your macros, let's get you fed consistently, which does work. You can still be better for a long enough period of time that you're going to feel probably your best, and understand that most people are probably underutilizing nutrition. So what I mean by that is, the nutrition, macronutrients and the micronutrients aren't actually at their levels they need to be. So most people are probably deficient. So by adding a few of these things into a relatively healthy person is really going to enhance how they feel, because they're going to start to metabolize food correctly. And remember, your metabolism isn't just the process of burning fat, which we commonly get caught up in. There's so many other vital functions in your body that if you do not have necessary vitamins and minerals and macros, that things aren't going to work the way they should be working. So by bringing this level up, by introducing better, by like monitoring your food and seeking feedback, then we're able to, increase those stores and make sure vital functions are restored. What we do find is the reason this doesn't work for everyone is because that is more of that typical fitness industry scope. We've seen it work for a lot of people, but how long it works isn't really that appropriate unless they are super fit mesomorphic people. That's why when we look to introducing best, which is our best approach in terms of making sure we align you with your best self so you can become your best self, based on the actual foods that your biology is asking for. And through this process, as I've said, we've seen many incredible results. So just to touch on how this works around the health types, I'll put a little thing up here. With the best, there is certain recommendations based on like the mesomorph, endomorph, ectomorph morphology. So for those people, if we look at like a diplomat, for instance, what we're going to do is we're going to emphasize mainly plant food, and then we'll add food, animal proteins like a few times throughout the week. But depends on where it's hard to say for sure because it depends on you as an individual. And we work with you using technology to make sure of that. The health types are the kind of help to group things and understand similarities, but we can leverage a precision food list from the program to give you exactly what you need based on your current state of health. So it says here, emphasis on vegetables, limited animal protein, meal timing, 2 to 3 meals per day without snacking. I thought it was crazy, tell people not to snack. I thought it was a great way to keep people's energy going. Turns out it's not how it works. Then if we're to look at the Guardian, so the Guardian was like a large breakfast, vegetarian or vegan-ish diet, and reducing refined sugars. Those sugars in that large digestive system can cause a lot of issues. If we then look at the sensor, so a more ectomorphic person, a little bit like really lean frame, they want warm food, well cooked, and frequent small meals. They want to avoid mental stimulation during meals. So we need to take that time and move away from the task that we're doing so that we can focus on the food and digesting the food and getting the energy from that. Sensors, they talk like a bird. They talk as in suggesting they eat like a bird, like small frequent meals throughout the day. Don't overeat or you won't be able to use your mental capacity as well. Then what we look at is the Crusader, so the next one around. So with the Crusader, there's an importance of well-cooked foods, mineral-rich diet, and avoiding toxins like caffeine and alcohol. Because they do have that neural influence through the ectoderm, that's the reason why some of the Crusaders do want to avoid it. But it does depend on you as an individual, and we can find that out in your individual food list. We then have the activators as we move around. So the activators require regular small meals, high protein intake, and avoid sweetened and packaged foods. So it's similar to everyone, the prepackaged food stuff, but in terms of the regular small meals with high protein, that's typically what we see out of the fitness industry. And that's why it works really well for those really muscly people when we like, oh, if I just follow what they're doing and I eat the foods that they're eating, I'm going to look the same. I did that for so many years and I didn't see the similar results. So have so many other people that it is time to look at different approaches to suit you, not what the person's doing that you think you need to look like. The next person to that is, or the health type is connector, a variety in diet, social meal settings, and limiting grains and refined sugars. So the Crusader has, the connector probably has the most flexible gut. It sits between that mesomorph and the endomorph. So just making sure we sit closer to that activator sort of eating, then we'll find that they really end up feeling their best. And this all comes down to how the health types utilize their energy throughout the day. So what we also talk about is like the early bird versus night owl, and it works off our body's clocks. When we look at the endomorphic people, they need to have and then do. So they're the night owl type people. They keep going, eating throughout the day, and then they peak at night and then drop off. What we notice with the mesomorphic people is they bang straight up in the morning. They need to go get started and then they'll taper off. And then the ectomorphic, what we notice for them, it's pretty much constant throughout the day. So they need that constant stimulation for their brain mainly to keep them going and processing, because our brain actually uses a lot of energy throughout the day. I'll also share a couple of other slides for you guys in terms of what the health types meal timing looks like. So activator, we got those early starts or a late breakfast if you're training in the morning, not too late. And then we're going to look at eating snacks throughout the day. So between your meals, we're going to place meals in there. We're going to have your lunch in the middle of the day, making sure we are topping ourselves up. We have that afternoon snack and then a big dinner. So what we found with activators, and I've seen helping some of my clients, is that if they don't have a large meal at night, they can wake up at like 3 a.m. because their body turns catabolic, so they get really hungry. And to fix that, we just have a larger meal at dinner that still sits within the food list, and that helps them a lot. When we look at the connectors, so similar to their activators, they do have that mesodermic influence like we said, but they also have a little bit of the Guardian. For them, they can have that breakfast around 7 o'clock. If they trained in the morning, they will have the snack. Otherwise, they can get away with not having it because they store the energy really well. We have the lunch about 12 to 1, and then we also have dinner, an afternoon snack 1 to 3, and dinner at 6 to 8. So I'll pop that up there. We then have the Guardian. So when we look at the Guardian health type, they have a big breakfast. So we said breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and then dinner like a pauper. So I was saying princess before, but pauper fits a bit better. And basically it's that big breakfast to begin to give them energy. They'll utilize that. They build off that during the day. Lunch will reduce in size, but they can still have a big lunch if they require it to get through the day. And then dinner. With this process, we're still coaching the individual. We're checking in each week. We're making sure that they do feel sustained energy throughout the day so that they don't feel like they need to snack in the afternoon. What I know with a lot of endomorphic clients is because they used to consistently snack throughout the day, it was just always making them hungry. It just creating a stress response where they wanted to eat more. As soon as we implemented the frequency and the timing, what happened was that desire, that need to eat all the time actually disappeared. But then we had to monitor energy levels and calories for the highly active people. And through that process, we're able to help them achieve their goals really effectively. For the diplomat, what we see is they can actually go without breakfast. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you've always just felt like you didn't eat breakfast, but fitness professionals like, break your fast, you have to do this. I was guilty of it. I told people to do that. Turns out that can actually stress the diplomat's body. So with that, we want to look to have a later breakfast. You can push it out really late, surprisingly. You can check the graph. If you don't eat breakfast, it's more of a snack around 12. Then we're looking at lunch. Lunch is 2 to 4. So that's the biggest meal. That's to help sustain that night owl, that productiveness through the night. And then dinner, you want to make sure it is relatively small and you're going to aim for a higher veg with a little bit of meat and stuff. Diplomats do have the longest gut. They're usually taller humans. They've got that digestive tract that runs really long. This means they take more nutrients out of the food. So that's why we want that more plant-based approach, because it's easier to digest. And then if you put the meat in it, it kind of slows things down and clogs it up. Doesn't mean they can't have it. They definitely do need it, especially if they're highly active. But we're finding that when we're implementing these things, the digestive issues are the number one thing to improve. And then we know that when we improve the digestive system and the stomach feels better and we're eating foods that are better for our microbiome, then people's mental health is going to improve as well. So with that, diplomats love using analytic cognitive thinking, and by improving their ability to feel better, we're going to improve their brain power. They're going to feel so much better doing the tasks that they want to do. Then we'll look at senses. So the senses at the bottom of the circle, for them, they're the ectomorphic influence, the rather lean ones. We're going for consistent meals throughout the day. So breakfast at 6 to 8, we're looking at a morning snack as well. Lunch 11 to 1, the afternoon snack, and then dinner 6 to 8. There is recommendations for that. So breakfast looking highly digestible foods, carb rich, well cooked, or a smoothie for a sensor. The snack in the morning is long chain carbs, fruits, beans, and veg. Lunch, cooked hearty meal, protein, carbs, and veg. The afternoon, natural sugars for brain fuel. Dinner 6 to 8, well cooked protein, carbs, specific veg. So cruciferous types of veg and garlic and leeks can be really effective for this type of body. We then move over to the Crusader. So they do have a little bit of that mesodermic influence, but mainly ectomorphic. So they need those consistent meals throughout the day to sustain their high cognitive load. Breakfast is 6 to 9. Lunch is snacks in between, 11 to 1 for lunch. Dinner is 6 to 8. For the suggestions, we're looking at breakfast, complex carbs, healthy omegas, protein, antioxidants. Lunch is 11 to 1, so we want that cooked. We want, I have to avoid bread in my profile, so probably the same for most Crusaders. Around that lunchtime, we want something that's easy to digest and process so that we can get back to our work, being focused and mission driven. We then have that afternoon snack, and then we finish with dinner 6 to 8. Same again, well-cooked protein, carbs, and green leafy veg. We do want carbs. Carbs can help reduce stress at night and replenish that cognitive load and that energy used. And that's kind of it, guys, for Around the Circle. I hope you got a little bit out of that. If you want to learn more about epigenetics in general, check back on some of the other episodes. Episode 2, we talk a bit more in depth around each health type in the circle. If you want to learn why I chose this approach, go to episode 1. And next week, we will be looking at epigenetics in building and nurturing relationships. So really fascinating stuff. We all have these hormonal profiles that influence behaviors, and it also changes the way we interact with people, So understanding this, being more self-aware of the way you naturally react, it's super empowering, especially in working with teams, or, you know, there's certain things in relationships where you're like, why do they always do that? Having this level of understanding for them can help smooth out situations. But then also other people becoming aware of that as well can help the situation too. So I hope you found this interesting. If you want to reach out, want to contact me, find me on Instagram, Josh_thinkfit. Check out the rest of the YouTube videos. And if you have any questions, pop them below and I'd love to have a chat. Thanks, guys.